Okay, good evening, everyone. Susan, are you all set? Susan, I think we're getting echoed back here. Okay. Oh. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's better. Thanks. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. This is the June 20th Planning Commission hearing. If we could let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are in attendance. And I'll call this meeting to order. All right, if we could start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this first part of our meeting will be oral communications. This is a chance that allows the public to address the commission for 3 minutes. If you wish to address the commission, it should be on an item that is not on our agenda tonight. And we'd ask that you submit a speaker slip. Are there any speaker slips tonight?
We do. We have one this evening, and that's Ellen Burr.
Okay. Ellen?
Good evening, Commission. Happy summer solstice. I'm mostly here because I watched the last 2 meetings, and there was some discussion about RENA and what we should do about it. And there was this article that was about the Carlsbad problem. And at the end of the article, it says, state housing officials say they have heard cities' feedback and recognize the need for an improved RENA process, but are largely focused on the next cycle. This is June 15th. In April, HCD shared a list of recommended changes to the RENA process to go into place before the 7th cycle, including greater data sharing between regional agencies, yada, 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 and creating a better jobs living balance. I really do think it is not only in the purview and in the brief, but in the responsibility of this commission to advise the council on RENA and other development issues. It says right here about the Planning Commission. The Commission has final authority to decide discretionary projects except for minor projects that are acted upon by the Development Service Commission. Final Commission decisions are appealable. The Commission also is an integral part of land use policy and regulatory making process. It assists the Council in distilling broad options and issues into focus, facilitating the City Council's decision-making on land use policy and regulatory matters. The role of the Planning Commission is to provide input on land use and ensure orderly development reflective of Encinitas community values. It is accountable to the City Council. Now, there is no way we are going to meet our numbers, our half numbers, which HCD has says that if by the halfway point, which would be next April, if we are not meeting 50% in all categories, they can institute builder's choice. Come down on us like a ton of bricks. I don't know that they would do that, but that is truly a possibility. So in case that should happen, we should be ready to respond to it. We should also be proactive as to they're already working on the next, what they're going to want to do. We need to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it, because whatever they come up with will actually go to Sandag 2 to 3 years before cities are supposed to get back to them, and whatever they have decided, they will only have, right now it's 30 days, they want to change it to 21 days. So please, we have no problem with market rate or over moderate housing. We have no problem with moderate housing, but truly, lower and extremely low housing, we are totally missing the mark. So something to think about, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is changes to the agenda. Does anyone on the board have any changes to the agenda? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we move item 8C to the consent calendar.
Do we have any speakers on 8C?
We do not.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Second?
Okay. Thank you. Could we call the vote? Okay, that looks like that motion passes, so that will move item 8C, which is the Caves Wine Shop, to the consent calendar. Our next order of business is to vote on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
A second? Can we call that vote? Okay, the consent calendar passes, and we are moving on now to our first regular agenda item, item 8A. This item is the Melba Heritage Trees, and it is project number, 6696, 2023. H Tree is the applicant number, or the job number. If that, I could turn it over to staff, Fran Carr, for a presentation.
Hello and good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners. My name is Fran Carr, Associate Planner, and I am presenting the item before you for the request for 4 trees located on private property to be added to the approved Melba Heritage Grove, heard before Planning Commission on September 7th, 2023. The request before you is for 4 Torrey pines located on private property at 1202 Melba Road. The trees are located near the east property line. The trees and canopy are identified above. To be designated as a heritage tree, it must be considered a tree of community significance that meets one of the following findings. It's one of the oldest and largest of its species. It has a unique form or species. It has a historic significance, or it's a defining landmark or significant outstanding feature of a neighborhood. Trees located on private property can be designated, but they require the approval of the property owner. In January 2023, City Council amended the Heritage Tree Ordinance to include the Heritage Grove, which means a group of trees that collectively meet one or more of the Heritage Tree criteria. Of the 4 trees in the application, all are considered to be recommended for approval. The property owner included consent for the Heritage Tree nomination within the project application. These trees were found collectively to be a defining feature of the neighborhood. However, individually, they do not meet the criteria. There was one public speaker present at the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee meeting for the consideration of the recommendation of the trees. The concerns of that meeting were made by the neighboring property owner in regard to the effect of the adjacent property and a planning application in progress for the development of that site known as the Torrey Crest Subdivision Project. This project has not been heard at the Planning Commission to date. The neighboring property owner also submitted 2 public comment letters confirming his position on the item before you today and requests that Planning Commission approve the nominations with the request that the Planning Commission acknowledge that there will be no conflict between the Torrey Crest project and the Heritage Tree nominations. These public comments are summarized in the meeting minutes from the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee, and public comment letters are included as an attachment to the staff report. Public comment also was received from a resident on Melba Street in support of the nomination. In conclusion, staff recommends that Planning Commission approve the nomination of 4 Torrey Pines to be added to the approved Melba Heritage Grove based on the findings contained in the attached draft resolution of approval. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. If I could just do a couple housekeeping items before we jump to staff questions. Just to be clear, if you were here for the Wine Caves project, that was moved to consent, so you do not need to be here for the rest of the evening. 2, I'd like to go through any disclosures. I'll start by saying I've visited the site, but I have not been on the private property, and I've seen the trees from the street.
Same, actually. I drove by it a couple of times, but not walked the property.
Thank you.
The same, I've driven by many times.
Okay. Okay. This third item, I kind of wanted just to mention it to the public as well as the commission that we are aware that there is another project immediately next door to this project, but that is not what we're reviewing tonight. We're focusing on the trees for this property. So some discussion may come up about the adjacent project, and I would caution everybody that we need to limit that discussion. That project has not been brought forward to the Planning Commission yet, and we're not really here to debate its merits. So with that, I will open it up to the Planning Commissioners if there's any questions for staff. I'll start here to my immediate right. I see a notebook full of them.
Actually, most of these questions were answered during my conversation with Anna today, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that there is a project next door that's already been submitted and to the planning department, and any changes that were made to the heritage trees or the heritage grove subsequent to the filing for that particular property won't be deemed to apply. Is that correct?
I can speak to that. There is a status that the adjacent project has under SB 330 in which the cities cannot add any new provisions or regulations to it. The heritage grove definition was added subsequent to them being deemed submitted, which is the terminology. And therefore, for that property, we would not be able to apply these standards of heritage grove on that property.
So a question for Scott, our lawyer. So it would seem that the request made by the developer of the adjoining property is moot?
So if their project continues to have, yes, assuming that they don't change the project substantially and then lose their protections that they would have under state law, I don't know why they would, but assuming that that would be the case, then correct. Then this will not affect that property.
However,
Susan?
I just want to add that we're not considering that project whatsoever in this discussion. We're only considering whether or not to approve the trees.
Correct.
That is correct.
Bob, do you have any questions?
I do. If you could go back to your report, there are 4 categories that you identified. Okay, my understanding is your last statement, one of your statements was that individually these trees do not qualify. However, I believe that the Torrey pines is one of the rarest pine trees in the United States, and if not in the globe. So how does that not qualify under the statement that the individual tree is not a unique species?
That's a good question. When the project was heard before the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee, they weighed each one of these criteria. They looked at the age, the frequency of species in the area, And due to those factors, they had elected that the criteria that it met was the defining feature of the neighborhood. So in that case, they did not see it as a uniform or species.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions, or Brent?
In light of the comments that I've already heard tonight, yeah, most of my questions had to do with the adjoining property and their development. So no, I don't have any.
Okay. Susan, do you have any questions for staff?
Well, I just want to clarify the age of these trees. They were established originally as a much earlier date, but now it's 1959, is that correct? 65-year-old trees?
Correct, 65.
Okay, thank you very much for that staff report. With that, I will open the public comment portion of this. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bernard Minster. My wife, Carol, and I have submitted these nominations. The 4 trees we're talking about were a major factor when we chose to purchase this property in 1980. And we just simply love them. Since then, I discovered that they house a large number of birds, mostly. It's an Airbnb, they call it now. And I had a wonderful presentation of baby owls and baby Cooper's hawks. But I didn't realize that you don't read thumb drives anymore. So I'll be glad to email it to you if you wish. Anyway, I hope you approve this. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay.
Did you have any great horned owls this fall?
I apologize. My hearing aids are in the factory being repaired, I think.
I was just asking if you had great horned owls this winter, spring.
Great horn, yes.
Okay.
Three
some too.
owlets.
Yep.
And I had pictures of the last one, the little runt that came down and just didn't know how to fly. So cute.
We had the same. We had 3 owlets. 1 fell out, but 2 made it. In fact, they're still around. So I understand.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any public speaker slips for this item?
Yes, we have 2 speakers. Gerald Ann. Following Gerald Ann will be Brian Staber.
I'm sorry, my printer's broken, so I have to read from my phone, which I hate. Thank you for considering these 4 additional trees. 3 years ago, I knew very little about trees except the way they made me feel when I was in them. They give me all the feels and put me in a happy place. I also have been looking into the birds that live in the tree. Merlin Bird app by Cornell has a great way of listening to and identifying the birds. So I've been walking the neighborhood, Amelba, Oakcrest Park, in my house, and guess I found several birds. And let me just see. I found a northern mockingbird, a hooded oriole, a black-headed goosebeak, a scaly-breasted muna, a northern flicker, a bewick's wren, a red-shouldered hawk, a lesser goldfinch, a dark-eyed Junico, Cassin kingbirds, western flycatcher, and a blue-gray gnatcatcher in Oakcrest Park, a black phoebe, an Allen hummingbirds, house finch, California towhee, an orange-crowned warbler, a wren-knit, a spotted towhee. And several of them are in my backyard, too. I hear the same kind of music in the morning. So anyway, I hope you approve this, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Brian Staver?
Hello, members of the Planning Commission. Happy longest day of the year. It's one of my favorite days. My name is Brian Staver. I live at 1493 Cascadia Lane in Encinitas. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners of the Torrey Crest project located at 1220 through 1240 Melba Road nearby. There is a 20-foot flag lot that separates our property and this property, so that's not adjacent neighbors. There's a gap between us. And as kind of Anna mentioned, there's this SB 330 angle that you can take to say, well, that anything applied under that ordinance doesn't apply to this project. Kind of separately, though, we were saying, you know, if the Planning Commission votes to include these trees in that grove, the Melba Heritage Grove, we're calling it, that the Commission's motion also contain language specifying that the proposed Torrey Crest project should not be prevented from being built as proposed. The potential cutting of roots more than 20 feet from these trunks has already been deemed safe to the trees by a certified arborist, Mark Wisniewski, the city arborist, Chris Kalstrand, and deemed not to be of concern as reviewed by the UFAC subcommittee. We're requesting this to prevent the potential for ambiguity between the private property owners over how Heritage Grove inclusion might affect current proposed construction, and to avoid the situation where the city approves our construction plans as proposed, but a third party appeals the city's decision on the basis that these trees' status as part of the Heritage Grove should preclude that construction. Maybe we're overdoing it a little bit here, but we just think it'd be helpful to say yes, and let's not let this complicate something that's been reviewed. Thank you.
If I could ask you a question,
Yeah.
just to clarify, you do not own the 20 feet, which is the access to the back lot. You are on the opposite side of that.
Correct.
that
We're
access.
further east.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all the public comment?
There are no more speakers.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant wish to address anything that was discussed here today? A rebuttal? It's not required.
I would be very sad if something would happen to those trees. And I take Mr. Staver to his word when he says he wants to protect two larger trees, which are one on the boundary and one on his property. And he said he was going to protect them. But he never said he would protect ours, which is fine. I mean, that's not his job, but if they are heritage trees, he has to take some care in the way he deals with the right-of-way. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will close the public comment portion of this meeting and open it up to commission deliberation. Does anybody want to start?
I'll go.
Susan? Okay.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that this application came to us, knowing that Torrey pine trees are the most rare and endangered pine species in all of the USA, and they only grow in a very limited area, and that includes San Diego County. Torrey pine trees can live to be 250 years old. These are 65 years old, so I think it's quite appropriate that we try to preserve what we can and include them as part of our protected trees and in part of our urban forest that is part of our overall goal as a city to increase the number of trees and protect trees that are important to us. I do believe the root system of the tree can be twice the diameter of the trunk height. However, the most important part of the root system is closer to the tree itself. And so hopefully by creating heritage trees, we're doing everything we can to keep them healthy. And thanks again for bringing the application.
I wanted to second that. Certainly, I appreciate the property owner for bringing the motion forward and including these trees in that group. I as well like to thank the developer for being proactive in trying to mitigate future potential issues. It certainly is always in high regard and appreciated. Yeah, thank you.
Bob?
Again, thank you for bringing it forward. I appreciate Mr. Staver for coming by and suggesting, but I also understand that today it's just a question of the trees and the grove itself and including those into the grove, which I support. And I like the resolution as it is and don't think we need to adjust it. That is something that can be addressed when that application comes before us, and we can deal with it at that time. But these are wonderful trees, and a big part, I'm glad our commission is looking at trees as part of our urban forest and following the recommendation of the UFAC to save these trees or protect these trees.
Okay. Chris?
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said, and I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'd like to second that.
I'd like some discussion if we could. Just to play devil's advocate, what would happen if these trees weren't put in the Heritage Grove? Wouldn't this property owner have every right to maintain and continue to keep those trees and the birds and all that? I think there's general agreement that we all love the trees, but does the Heritage Grove give it any greater protection? I mean, they're his trees.
Certainly, they would have to go under additional scrutiny if they were heritage trees, and they're part of a heritage grove. They go through a more lengthy process, I believe, for getting any approval for any construction, any type of development that's nearby.
Okay.
So I think it doesn't really matter as to the plan that Mr. Staver's already put into place, that he's already brought to the city, but if the plans change significantly and there has to be a new application, then it would apply, or it also would affect any other future development by any other developer. So it's protection for the future.
For the future owner of that property.
Future owner, well, or them, depending on what else is going to be developed in the area that might affect the trees, or if the development project changes in some significant way and they have to refile, then they would be subject to the heritage tree regulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that Planning Commission only can consider one project at a time. That is our role, and that is our legal obligation. We can't actually add anything to this resolution about a project that will come under Planning Commission review in the future. It's inappropriate.
I agree with your comment, Susan, and Bob's earlier comment. I would be uncomfortable adding anything to the resolution based on a plan that I've never seen, and I have no idea what the adjacent property does. So to that part of Mr. Staver's emails and communication, I'm not comfortable or asking that we do any of that. I did have a question. These are at the northern edge of this property, and all the other trees are in the southern right-of-way. Does that, in your mind, constitute a grove for proximity? I mean, you know, they're separated by the entire length of the property. Is that still considered a grove in your mind?
In my opinion, it does constitute a grove, but actually I think that the people who already reviewed it, our forest group, you know, that already reviewed it has decided it is, and they are certainly more expert than I am. And a certified arborist would be the right designation, you know, type of person to evaluate. And I think in any event, I do know a little about those trees, having studied them, that they have a whorled seed. It takes 3 years for seeds to mature in the cones, the female cones, before they can be released. And because they whorl, they distribute fairly broadly. And so the distance is, for them, very small. And probably originally there may have been more of the trees, who knows, but they may have been removed for development previously. So, or they could have fallen, you know, they could have been damaged by lightning, who knows. But we're considering these trees now, and to me, they are close enough, and visually in the pictures appear to be close enough. I don't recall, I've been on Melba Drive a number of times, and I recall trees, but I don't really recall, you know, scrutinizing this area. But it is a lovely street, and I enjoy going down it, and probably that's part of the reason why just that canopy. When you think of the canopy of a tree, as you know, being an architect, the canopies are quite broad, and so they overlap these 4 trees, as we saw in the drawings that we received. So the ones that are out at the street edge, closer to the parkway, would potentially be large enough canopy that they're pretty close and considered a grove.
Okay, thank you for that response.
Real quick, I think the issue here is the application by the property owner, and whatever encumbrances might come with the designation of the heritage tree, he's been fully vetted. The UFAC has approved, has considered it a grove, and the applicant has considered the impacts on future value or future encumbrances and feels comfortable in putting his property trees into it. So I'd like to support his ability to do that. And whether it's a grove or not, I think to Commissioner Sherrod's point, arborist, and I consider it a grove because to her point, they kind of connect and the canopy shared. And if you go to a forest, there's trees over there and then there's trees over there, and I guess that's a forest. So my definition of a grove and an arborist or professional might be different, but I do consider it a grove. Okay. Thank you.
I'm hearing a general consensus on the board, and I appreciate you guys indulging my own hesitation. So there is a motion on the floor, and I believe there was already a second on the floor. Is that true? Okay, so I'll call the vote. Okay, that motion passes 5-0. Okay, I've seen them. Thank you, though. Okay, next item on our agenda tonight is the GP Diner Type 41 ABC license, case number multi-6645, 2023. I will start with any disclosures or statements from the commission.
I have been to the establishment in many of its different forms throughout the years and driven by it countless times. So I'm familiar with the property.
Okay, and I will disclose the same. I've bought my food there and I've walked by it several times.
Same. I've visited the establishment and purchased food.
Okay.
Likewise.
Thank you. With that, I will ask staff, this is Felipe Martinez, to give us a presentation.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I am Felipe Morfin Martinez, Assistant Planner. The item before you is multi-006645-2023, the GP Diner Type 41 ABC license project. The subject property outlined in red is located at 608 South Coast Highway 101 within the Downtown Encinitas Specific Plan and is zoned Downtown Encinitas Commercial Mixed 1, DCM1. The site was developed as a drive-through restaurant prior to the city's incorporation. On the north side of the street are a variety of commercial uses, including retail, restaurants, as well as some residential top floor units. To the south, we have restaurants and retail uses. On the west, we have office and residential use. And to the east, we have more commercial retail and restaurant uses. With a 2022 building permit, the building has undergone minor exterior and interior improvements. These improvements are reflected in the existing conditions. Here you can see the existing elevations, north, east, south, and west. The existing on-site outdoor dining area alongside the shop's frontage facing South Coast Highway 101 and within the middle non-operating drive-through apron was approved through a 2023 COVID-19 temporary use permit. The permits required for this project are a minor use permit modification of the 2020 use permit for a new Type 41 ABC license, administrative design review permit modification to establish a permanent outdoor dining area, and a coastal development permit since the site is located within the coastal zone and must demonstrate compliance with the city's local coastal program. The proposed work is to establish the on-site temporary outdoor dining into permanent on-site outdoor dining. The outdoor dining area within the operating drive-through apron will include a fence barrier as alcohol service is proposed. This is the green area outlined in the graphic. The elevations 1, 2, and 3 show the proposed barrier of this outdoor dining area. Alcohol services will not be allowed within the outdoor dining area along the South Coast Highway 101 shop frontage since there is limited space to provide a barrier. This is the graphic highlighted in yellow. Alcohol services are proposed in all indoor dining areas. Currently, the restaurant is open Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday to Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. The indoor dining area is proposing alcohol services on Monday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday to Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. The exterior outdoor dining is proposing Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday to Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Food service will be provided at all hours of operation. No live entertainment is proposed. Both the Sheriff's Department and the city's Code Enforcement Division reviewed the project's request and had no concerns or comments. The applicant held a citizen participation program meeting on February 6, 2024. No members of the public attended the meeting and no comments were received. Notice of this public hearing was mailed on June 6, 2024 to all property owners and occupants within 500 feet of the project site and anyone who requested such notice in writing. Again, no comments were received. The proposed project with proposed conditions is consistent with the objective and policies of the general plan, downtown Encinitas specific plan, municipal code, and local coastal program. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve case number multi 006645-2023. This concludes my presentation. I am here for any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the staff? Seeing none. Oh, Bob.
In your staff report, you mentioned that the property would be non-conforming landscape. Do you have any recommendations to the applicant to make it conforming?
So currently the property does not have the 5%, but it has been conditioned to provide 5% of landscape with native landscape. And
So is that in the resolution?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that. Thank you. Appreciate that. So currently, the applicant is using the indoor space, correct, for seating? Is that right? The proposed, they're not using it as a drive-through. Is it being used for seating at the moment?
The middle drive-through lane
Yes.
has been used for outdoor dining.
And they currently have an approved Type 41 permit, correct?
Not correct.
Okay. What do they have now?
They currently do not hold an ABC license.
Okay.
So the 2022 approval was for a Type 41, but they never actualized that license.
So this process is to actualize that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a limit to the number of seats based on either code or the ABC permit for the indoor area? Or is there a limitation or a minimum or a maximum of seating where if you combine the indoor with the extra outdoor?
I can chime in on that. So that particular capacity standard is usually a building or fire safety standard, and so it's enforced by code.
Okay, so it's a fire standard code.
Correct.
I think I read it had an occupancy of 84 in your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, just a couple. The alcohol sales timeline that you provided, is that consistent with the neighboring businesses who have the same license?
I believe Felipe has a slide that he's looking for. Just a moment.
Thank you. I provided here an exhibit, so all the green dots are the Type 41 establishments around the property, and they all have similar timeframes. Some are close earlier than others, but they are around 10 p.m.
Thank you, so it's consistent with everything around them.
Correct.
Okay. I might have one more, let me just go to my, go ahead.
If I could
I'll
ask a
pass.
question while you search.
please.
To clarify on an earlier question, you said that there's a condition to add 5% of landscaping to the site?
So the 5% is the requirement per this specific plan, and there is a condition that they will show compliance to that.
But that's not in the current plans showing where they will put landscaping?
The current plans do not reflect the 5% landscape.
Okay. And that would be something that would come back to staff, and you guys would see that and either approve or reject it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
If I could also clarify that in the diagrams, the seating for the outdoor dining that's proposed seem to be entirely under the apron. Is that what is entirely going to be approved?
Can you repeat your question?
In the diagrams, it appeared that the seating for the outdoor dining appeared to be under the apron, which was the old drive-through. Is there going to be outdoor dining in the what used to be the turn lane into it that's now going to be gated?
There is going to be a barrier, and this middle drive-through lane is not in use. And per the 2022 use permit, the use was revoked. So you can't use that middle drive-through lane.
Understood. In this diagram where it says outdoor on the bottom of the diagram in the green, is there going to be seating in that area or just under the apron of the building?
The proposed seating is what is in front of you. The applicant did not propose seating in that area.
Correct.
Right, so I think what the commissioner was asking is like, well, I'm going to clarify. In the lower word outdoor, that is clearly does not have a roof, correct?
Correct.
And there's no proposed seating in the area without a roof?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'd like clarification of that. Are we to assume that these tables and chairs are literal locations of seating, or are these diagrammatic suggestions of how they might furnish it? I would assume that they would have the ability to put a table down in the lowest part of the green if they so chose.
Correct.
Okay. And that seating in the lower part of the green that's exposed would be having alcohol?
Correct. It's behind the fence.
Behind the fence. Is the current use, are they asking to go permanent because is the current use of the property subject to the city's COVID-19 outdoor seating codes?
So the COVID-19 temporary use permit was required because in the specific plan, outdoor dining requires design review. So the temporary use permit allowed them to bypass the design review. So now they're coming in for design review modification to make this temporary outdoor dining into permanent outdoor dining.
Chris?
I would just have a question, a follow-up for that. So all of the outdoor dining that they're proposing is on private property, not public property?
Correct.
Okay, so that's what enables them to have the outdoor dining if they did a design review permit? Because it's on the private property?
Through the design review.
Right,
correct,
right.
yes.
Okay, so they could have, instead of using the COVID-19 outdoor dining permit a couple of years ago, they could have also come in and asked for a design review permit, just a regular permit. But they
Correct.
chose to use at that point the COVID-19 permit.
Correct.
Okay. So this isn't the same kind of situation as a restaurant that's using public property and has seating on public property because of the COVID-19 rules. It's different from that.
Correct. This is on private property.
Thank you.
I also want to clarify if the drive-through was operational.
The middle lane is not
No,
operational. The other drive-through lane is operational.
For service?
Yes,
And alcohol will not be served through the drive-through? Is that correct?
correct.
Not sure I saw that in the restrictions.
I have a question about that, because if, with the type 41, can they sell unopened alcohol through the drive-through?
I don't believe so.
Do you know, Anna?
I actually don't know the answer to that, but it is within the purview of this use permit to condition it one way or another.
So you're
Then they'd
talking,
have to-
so she's asking almost like 7-Eleven, you can go up and buy a six-pack and walk away, is that?
Right, that's my question.
Okay, yeah. And we can restrict that in our resolution if we so choose.
Correct.
Is there another type 41 restaurant that has the ability to sell walk away, whatever you call it, product?
Currently under state law temporarily, but none that I'm aware of. We're looking up the type 41 language right now
Okay.
for ABC to see what the licensing itself.
What licensing allows somebody, if you go into a restaurant, you order a bottle of wine, you can recork it and then you can leave with the bottle of wine that you purchased. So I think this might be the same, whatever that license is, and it might be the type 41.
We can look into it.
That's a good question.
Bob, are you working on your questions, or are you done?
Hang on a second, one last one. I was just, on the fencing, it looked like it was a pretty low fencing. I'm assuming that the renderings that you provided to us that showed the fencing are to code?
Correct.
The little wrought iron, little fencing
Yes,
thing?
the 3.
3 feet, I think, was what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Chris?
I have another question. It's regarding the landscape, and also I think there's also some closing of curbs too. Those are going to be required to be done before they could get their use permit for the alcohol?
Before the city could approve the ABC license.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, we'll move on from that. Thank you very much, Felipe. Okay, I will open the public comment or public portion of this hearing and ask if the applicant is here, if they'd like to make a presentation.
Hi, my name's Taylor. I'm with the architecture firm Noah Group. Yes, our client's proposing to get their ABC license. They're not going to sell alcohol out of the drive-through. It'll only be through the hours allotted, and it'll be in the indoor and the outdoor dining area. They went with the temporary COVID permit originally because there were some troubles like getting the project open, so like to recoup some of the money before we went to design review and did the minor modification. They just went with the COVID one initially to get open and start selling food. So yeah, now we're coming back, trying to get it all like officially in permit and like get it all done permanent. Yeah, we're gonna be adding the 5% landscape through potted native plants. And we need to do the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. So the only thing that we're asking for that is to be able to get our ABC license and then have like a 60-day window or something to recoup some of the money from the ABC license so that we can, they can afford to do the curb and gutter and sidewalk. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant?
The comment that Commissioner Ryan talked about the curb and gutters, is it consistent? Well, I don't know if this is a question for her, or maybe it's deliberation, sorry.
Okay, we'll deliberate. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any public speakers on this item?
There are none this evening.
Okay. I will close the public portion of this and open it up to commissioner deliberations.
Her comment about the approval of the ABC license and then go back and do the curb and gutter. So maybe it's a staff question, or maybe it's just a timeline. Is that normal? And what, once that happens, how do we ensure that the curb and gutters actually got done, because now they have their license and maybe they don't have to anymore?
So that was staff's concern, was there are no mechanisms after we issue the license to monitor it. And, staff can change, things like that. So if there is a way that is going to be secure, there's another item to this, is that if the commission should choose to allow the extension, we are able to revoke a use permit should they not comply with their conditions of approval. So that would be one avenue if, let's say, the time has passed and somebody notices, they can file a code enforcement request. And at that time, it would have to come before the planning commission again to revoke the permit.
So would that require a member of the public to file a complaint?
Correct.
So it wouldn't be the city going out and checking, it'd be a member of the public?
And we can certainly, there's risks obviously to that, but we can try to monitor it if it was something like 30, 60 days. Anything longer than that is a little bit concerning.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly time-consuming, and if you withhold a permit, then they have a substantial incentive to actually complete the application. But if they're already holding a permit in place, then it might be many months before you actually have a revocation hearing, in which time then they'll finally get around to actually doing it. Either that or they would revoke. So you might be looking at losing 6 months of compliance and a more cumbersome process. I think that those are staff's concerns.
So can we make it a condition of the resolution that requires it to be done in a period of time? And if they, as a specific period of time, and if they do not do it, then by default, they're non-compliant.
Correct. So that would be an option. And then the question is, how do you enforce it? Then the enforcement, well, you're in violation. So then you'd have to hold a hearing and notice it, and a cumbersome process, as opposed to simply saying, sorry, you're not going to get your permit until you're done.
Can I ask staff to pull up the location of the curbs that Commissioner Ryan spoke of and that we're deliberating?
Yes.
And in this vein, are there any other public areas that would fall under the same condition of we either hold back the approval, or is there another, other than this one curb cut, is there another location on the site plan? Okay, fire away.
So the curb cut that is to be repaired is the curb cut on West D Street, where the decommissioned drive-through lane is currently occupying.
Is that number one area-ish?
Yes.
Is there another area on the site that would require remedial action, such as number one?
There is no other curb cut that would be required.
Not just curb cut, but let's expand it to other obligations under the requested permit that would be, after the permit is approved, they could get to it or not get to it, such as the curb cut.
Isn't there a closing of an apron?
So the curb cut is the apron where they are to replace and make it a walkable sidewalk.
So I thought it was 2 locations. I thought it was 1 location on D and 1 on 101.
It is only on the West D Street. The current street is on a moratorium, so having them replace on South Coast Highway 101 would be very expensive and also would be a very minimal improvement since there is an active drive-through lane.
Okay, so it's just the entrance on D Street?
The
Or was
exit
it
on D
The
Street,
exit on
yes.
D Street. Okay.
So it's not there, it's just right, it's right up here, and he said that, there's a fence there, and then that is where.
Okay, just to try to put some structure to this, it sounds like there's some concern about the driveway apron, about whether to delay it or not. Just to say, I kind of fall in the line of make it, it's a requirement, make them, they should do it now. I think if they weren't to do it, it's a mess down the road trying to enforce it. So I would fall in favor of just keeping the resolution as it is and not extending a timeline.
I agree with that.
So the resolution currently says they have to do it to get the permit?
Correct.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think it's a sidewalk, there's trip and fall applications to the city. I think the answer is yes, I agree with you.
Everybody does it. I mean, a development comes through, they're required to do a right-of-way improvement.
Right.
Okay. Brent, any comments on that, or Susan? Okay. Yes, Susan?
Well, I think I'm okay with the resolution as is as well.
Okay.
I think that the establishment's best interest, its own best interest, is to reduce its liability, and I think they will do so.
Okay. I have a minor issue with the project, and it has to do with the 2 gates that are at these new fences that they're going to add. Currently, they're shown swinging out over the property line, and I just think it would be, if not code required, it'd be better practice to have those recessed onto the property so that when the gate is in its open position, it doesn't obstruct someone walking by on the sidewalk.
That's an excellent observation. The architect is here. Can we ask if that's possible?
I agree.
Pretty sure it's possible.
It would be better if they had a sliding mechanism.
I don't think sliding would meet ADA as well and egress, but I think we routinely recess these gates. Okay.
It's a great question. My learning curve is pretty steep. Is that something we put in a resolution that we have as part of the?
I would,
Is that how it works?
if we were there, I would say we'd make a motion, and someone would make a motion with the condition that the gates be recessed or shifted away from the property line.
I move that the project be approved with recession of gates
Okay,
to
thank you,
not
Susan.
swing over public right-of-way.
I'm not quite ready to second that, I'm sorry. Somebody wants to second it, I guess I have to let them. No, I was going to ask, are there any other thoughts that you had regarding the project? That was a good one, something I wasn't thinking of.
I see this largely as a cleanup thing. They're operating a business. I appreciate that they're operating that business here. They're trying to get ahead of a future sunset clause of the temporary permit. So in all ways, or a lot of ways, I think they're doing the right thing by coming here. What I see is minor, and I don't really have any other issues with the project.
I agree. I agree with you.
Okay. So I heard a motion on the floor. Does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I will call the vote. Okay, that passes 5-0. Congratulations, you have approval.
With conditions.
Okay, item 8C has been moved already. We're on to our future agenda items added by planning commissioners. Are there any future agenda items? Seeing any future agenda items?
I would like for our work plan to have a column added so that we can have a sign up for the various portions of the work plan.
I believe the work plan has already been approved and it's on its way to the council. Are we making edits to it at this point?
The work plan is approved and on its way to council in August. I believe this is the request from Commissioner Sherrod on creating subcommittees for some of the items. What I would ask is that it followed the bylaws in which there has to be a majority vote on the item that's decided on that's going to create a subcommittee and move forward with that process. So that would be step one.
Could I also ask for clarification? I'm supposed to present this plan to the city council. Do we officially need their approval of this plan before we start making concrete plans I mean, don't they in a way make the priority of what they think should be on that work plan?
That's correct. They may have edits to the work plan if they wish to do that.
Okay. So just for discussion from my standpoint, I think this is going to the city council on August 21st. I think it would be appropriate after their ratification or their approval of the work plan that we then discuss specific elements of that work plan. I would suggest it's probably too late to modify the physical nature of that work plan, but that doesn't mean that, Susan, you couldn't come in and say, this item, which is on our work plan, I would like to discuss adding that as a subcommittee or something like that. But in my mind, it would happen after the August 21st hearing.
Fair enough.
Okay? Any other items?
No, that's good. On the work plan, do we get a copy of the final? I think when it left, we added, after my diatribe, we added a couple things. But do we get a copy of the one that's going to the city council? Or does it go to public? Does it go public and then we get a copy of it when you post it for the agenda?
I can provide a copy now, or you can wait when it's on the agenda for city council to view it, just in case it's changed from that point.
I love a copy just because
Okay.
I can read it on Sunday afternoons. I love that stuff on golf. Just
Okay.
kidding.
I could send it to all the commissioners so that you have that final signed resolution that is being presented to city council.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask too, if we're getting sort of close to discussing the parklets?
The parklets just went to city council. I don't have a lot of details on it. I can find out when we return in August if there's an anticipated date. It was just an anticipated year of this year to be reviewing it, but I can come back with a little bit more detail once I speak with the staff working on it. And that's the ordinance that's being proposed to address them.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Are there any planning commissioner reports?
I did attend the El Camino Real presentation at the library. El Camino Real specific plan, which I think is going to be on the agenda next week, the special joint. So I did attend that. Do I have anything to say? No, I learned that the Home Depot is a specific plan, and it was interesting to find out that the Target Center is not part of the El Camino Real specific plan because it is part of the Equi Ranch specific plan. So they could not include the Target as part of a potential rezone or potential incorporation of the specific plan because it was unto itself another one. So that's a big site that could hold lots of the plans development or redevelopment, but that's a whole nother ballgame. So learned that one.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Susan, did you have any commission reports?
I attended the workshop 3 for El Camino Real specific plan and the presentation of the draft specific plan as well as the mitigated negative declaration. And comments are still open. So if anyone missed it and wants to submit comment, they still can do that. And I believe it closes in a week or two. I cannot remember the exact date, sorry. So the information that was presented is available on the city website in that location for the El Camino Real corridor specific plan. It really did not have a lot of change to it from what we last saw at workshop 2. And it's very complete in terms of showing setback, step back, the basic ideas. I think one of the things they're really looking for from the community are the community benefits area in terms of parklet and other kinds of amenities at the gathering places, seating areas, that what they would like to see. I think if people have specific ideas of things they have seen in other communities, it would be a great time to submit those.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, moving on to secretary reports.
Yes, the end of the public review of the draft initial study and mitigated negative declaration for El Camino Real specific plan ends July 2nd. So that's the date there. As mentioned, the joint City Council and Planning Commission on June 26th, which starts at 3:30 p.m. That one will be in council chambers. And then we have our Climate Action Plan number 2 workshop, which is at the Encinitas Community and Senior Center. And that begins at 5:30 p.m. And we are going dark in July, so there will be no meetings of July, but there will be our next meeting on August 1st.
What is the date of the Climate Action Plan number 2 at the Community Center?
That one is July 16th.
July 16th. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. With that, I will adjourn the meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting in August 1st, and we will see all of you at the June 26th joint meeting with the City Council. Thank you.
Physical components that make up your fire sprinkler system. Your water meter should be at the front of your property or